what the instinct book, for example, is really trying to speak to is the first real spiritual stage or real spiritual work that happens, the automatic world versus the sensitive inner world. And that this is what spirituality is about, getting really on the ground in terms of what the obstacle to spiritual sensitivity is, spiritual awakening or spiritual awareness is. It's not just, oh, here's some cool combinations that you might fit. It's like, this is the obstacle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The big hormone Enneagram.
Hi, I'm John Lukovich, sexual self-pres 4 with 5 wing, 458 trifix.
Hi, I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual 9 with 1, 974 trifix.
What up? It's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I am a self-pres social 3, wing 4, with a 369 trifix. If you like our podcast, guys, make sure you go like and subscribe on the Apple Podcast app. And if you really like us, you should definitely leave us a review.
Welcome to Big Hormone Enneagram. The original 4 crew are back after a long wandering in the desert away from each other. We found each other once again, and this week we are talking instincts because I got an instinct book coming out. Tentatively thinking the official release will be September 30th, and I'm trying to work up like ideas for workshops for people who buy the book and some kind of online goofy stuff and some other stuff. But for now, we are gonna just do an overview of the instincts and based on an article I wrote. But before we do that, we got some announcements.
For those of you who've been keeping track of all the Michael teaching stuff that we did earlier this year, Shepard has had a workshop in the spring and he's having another workshop now for the fall. So he's got a workshop called Beyond the Michael Teachings Chart. So it's kind of like next level teaching about Michael teachings. So that's going to be happening September 11th to October the 2nd. You can get more information on his website, shepherdhoodwin.com/events. And he's got a Zoom workshop, which is level 1, happening also around the same time, September 12th to December 5th. You can get more information on his website, once again, shepherdhoodwin.com/events. And also, for those of you who've been wanting help trying to understand your Michael Teachings chart, if you ordered the Michael Teachings chart from Shepard and you want some help interpreting it, we have an offering, which I'm the one who would be working with you on our website, enneagrammer.com/get-type. You can order a session with me to go over your Michael Teachings chart, and because I'm an Enneagram expert, I will also help you understand how that interplays with your Enneagram typing if you've been typed by us. So check out Shepard Hoodwin's website. You can check out Enneagrammer for Michael Teachings interpretation help with me.
Cool. I'm going to plug Alexandra's meme account, Angry Enneagram 9, on Instagram. It's hilarious and it's really well informed and it gives a deeper perspective on type 9, and she does a lot of interactive content, and it's fun to see, like, she shows me a lot of the messages people send her of, like, not only do they resonate a lot, but they're learning a lot about the parts of type 9 that are usually ignored or neglected, and all the kind of inner conflict and anger and pettiness and vanity and stuff like this. So it's really fun and funny, so check her out. But yeah, getting ready for my upcoming book. As you guys know, if you listen to this podcast, I hate almost all instinct descriptions that are out there. And I've been working on this book for many years. I thought it was going to be a quick thing because I was like, oh, I know the instincts. And it ended up being years of writing and research and study. And so the book is like, it's about the instinctual drives, like the sexual, social, and self-preservation and how they interact with type. But for me, it's not just a book of descriptions, it's a book of inner work and how our essential nature and our instinctual nature are related and how they fuck with each other. From my point of view, the personality is nothing but an organizational apparatus, so to speak, a psychological tool for dealing with our instinctual needs. Like, the reason we have a personality is because it's built on having instinct and negotiating instinctual needs with other social animals, other human beings. So it's this thing that we get identified with that makes it a problem. And there's so much instinct content out there that is really bad, and it's really doesn't make any sense why they pair with the Enneagram. And for me, the reason that we pair instinct with the Enneagram is because we get psychologically identified with instinct. And so the reason my research and all this stuff took so long was because needed to really understand what instinct was apart from the personality. And then what happens when we get it psychologically identified with it, how it impacts the emotional center, how it impacts the mental center, and how it impacts our relationship to essence. So to give people a little preview of like the whole book is kind of like it's kind of like a it's like a it is really is talking about the whole inner work process, but it's spending a lot of time on instinct and catching all the prison bars that instinct creates for us. And so I wrote this little article on my website, johnlekovich.com/articles. You can find it says 27 Enneagram type and instinctual type combinations. And so it's like a quick overview of just what's my little type. But it's when you go into it reading it, don't take it as like the final end all be all in your type. Like have an idea of what your type is or how to, and then these things are sort of help create more specificity around it. But I was not going to do these long things explaining type and instinct type combination for each one. If that makes any sense.
I mean, that's what kind of people are gonna do with your book.
Yeah.
Any sort of instinct book on the forums, they just copy and paste the short blurbs, and that's what gets memed everywhere. So
yeah,
smart to get ahead of that yourself, and because this is what people are going to want.
Correct information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this will be on like what's in the book is much longer than what I have on the articles, and the articles are more digestible and readable and shareable. But yeah, it's that kind of stuff. So if you're listening and you belong to one of those terrible websites like Personality Cafe or whatever, please spam this shit there. And we want to get rid of the idea of a sunny self-pres 4 once and for all.
Also, one thing is about the article and that excerpt from the book. Curious to know what was your process there, because everything I've seen from everybody who's read there is people that are accurately typed. It's like really spot on accurate. So was it a lot of interviews with people of those types and those type combinations, or what was your process?
That's a really good question. So, I've known the Enneagram for a while, so that I have a pretty good idea of a lot of people's types, and I think I know somebody of every combination personally. But for me, there were some people I asked questions to and interviewed, but a lot of it was getting a really clear sense of the essential quality of the type, and then getting a real clear sense of how the instinct works independent of type. And so then it was sort of like kind of putting puzzle pieces together of what would it look like if I'm an 8 that is looking for that like essential power. And what is essential power? How do I recognize it, not just conceptually, but like experientially? And then what does it mean if I think I can somehow extract my essential quality out of my dominant instinct? So if I'm looking for essential power, like how do I mistakenly think I'm going to like milk the stone to get essence from self-preservation? And seeing that in action, I really had to focus on my type and how as a sexual 4, I'm trying to get essential depth out of the sexual instinct and all the ways that shows up. And as we've been talking about a little bit with these like soul intercourse episodes and stuff, like with relationship transitions I've been going through, I mean, this was before all these, but it just showed me more deeply like the quality of suffering where you really think you're going to find God in your dominant instinct. And so getting a really clear sense of how survival and God and mother and all this other shit is like all locked in your dominant instinct. That was my main process, was how is essence going to be extracted, mistakenly extracted from dominant instinct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember you did a shift workshop. This is maybe a couple years after we started talking on Facebook. You did a shift workshop where I think was the first time that I saw you talk about essence and the instinct combinations, which really clarified, when you talk to people about the Enneagram, how do you introduce the relationship between instinctual drives and Enneagram type.
Mhm.
And to be able to connect, I think most people who have any experience with spirituality or know what essence is, even though they haven't really heard it too much with the Enneagram, you start to look at, okay, essence, and then personality type as a replacement for essence, and
Mhm.
then to meet those needs through the instinctual drives. And that, as an introduction to the Enneagram, was such a clear way of looking at it, to describe these type instinct combinations. And I think if you could explain all the different essential qualities and the instinctual drives, people could put those two together. They could sort of like start to make sense of it
Yeah.
without seeing a description, which is what I
Yeah.
liked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that because it's like, I don't have a very succinct way of saying anything, and I rely on you guys to help me. And so let me see if I can say this as succinctly, and maybe you guys can help me flesh out what I'm saying. But it's like all spiritual work, at least the beginning of spiritual work, like in Sufism, the first fana, is working with our identification with the instinctual drive. So it's like it's not just that, oh, like here's spirituality, and then it's useful to use this Enneagram type and instant combination to work with spirituality. It's like the contraction or inability to be conscious is about and focused on this identification with our animal self. And every fucking spiritual tradition that I'm aware of is they talk about this is the central thing or the central way that sleep happens. And so what the instinct book, for example, is really trying to speak to is the first real spiritual stage or real spiritual work that happens. Like I'm not talking fucking, samadhi or some other kind of like, loss of self kind of overcoming I kind of consciousness thing. I'm talking about like the automatic world versus the sensitive inner world, and that this is what spirituality is about, getting really on the ground in terms of what the obstacle to spiritual sensitivity is, spiritual awakening or spiritual awareness is. And so it's like it's not just, oh, here's some cool combinations that you might fit. It's like this is the obstacle. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote something down which I started repeating to people, is that we're looking for quality. I think that you've said we're looking for qualities of essence through the needs of our instinctual drives. And so if like that is like, okay, power through the needs of the sexual drive, the attraction, the needs and approaches that you've got on there. It's like that makes the personality structure really clear. Like this is what the personality structure is doing all
Right.
the time.
So yeah, my book spends a lot of time talking about what essence is and how it's like sort of divided up on the Enneagram and like what it means and how it's actually more common than like an experience than we recognize. We're just not conscious of it as essence, and how they're qualities of our being, meaning we don't do anything for them, but how instinct is something that we do. It's an activity, it's a process, it's a search. And so we start to go for something that's subtle and more refined and a little less concrete. And we try to look for it in our concrete experience. And so, yeah, it's like, as you said, there's a kind of, you can sort of think of it as an equation in a way to just see like how
Yeah.
mechanical the personality is.
Yeah, it's machine-like in a way, and almost the process then of conceptualizing and writing about it in some sense is equation-like in a way.
Right.
I think it's really impressive to put anything about the instinctual drive into words because for me, it's just kind of an experience. So to
Mhm.
like read about it or listen to someone talk about it, it can be really, really helpful in pinpointing anything about it because I'm just like, oh, this feeling is fleeting and now it's gone. And like it's a moment of awakeness. So to have anybody explain it slightly is honestly amazing to me.
Yeah, finding vocabulary was pretty difficult because these are so under your nose kind of things. And I think one of the greatest challenges I had was again being succinct, and like
Yeah.
finding words and like you guys helped me a lot with that, and like friends like my friend Julie Harris helped me a lot. Like there's some diagrams in the book. I have this whole thing about object relations and the development of instinct in early life and how we get identified and how it's like a very psychological thing. And anyway, she has some great diagrams she helped me design, and
Nice.
Cool.
I try to get like really concrete and really like trying to really show how totalizing our experience of instinct is, like how it's everything, it's everywhere, and
Yep.
everything that you think is not is you is really just actually not you either.
Mm-hmm.
It's whole other worlds. It's realms, like in the Baba Chakra thing. That's why they call
Right.
that. Yeah.
And I think
So
one of the important things that you developed as you're writing this book with the needs and the approaches, because a lot of times when you're trying to write like descriptions for instincts, people you kind of have to say, well, this person might be oriented to physical if for someone's a self-pressed type, they might be oriented to physical comfort, and people might read that and be like, I don't relate to that, I don't orient to
Right.
physical comfort. But then when you start to look at like something like approaches, then you can see how a certain approach can be applied to anything. Like
Right.
I did a session today with a self-pres 9, and we were talking about that, where he didn't relate to some of the self-pres stuff that we had on our website, but I pointed out like he, as a self-pres 9, listens to the podcast and he'll listen to the same episode 5 times, and it's not even
yeah,
like he's paying
there it
attention
is.
to it, but
Mm-hmm.
he's sort of like self-soothing with
Yep.
the same fucking, he'll do that with stories. And he was telling me how he'll listen to the same story over and over again and start like picking out his favorite parts of the story.
I do that too.
Like that's a self thing, and there's a sort of a grounding and stability that self-press types might do with something abstract or
Mm,
intellectual. And so just looking at the different instincts in terms of their approaches instead of like what people do, because people are looking for descriptions to describe every part of them, but just to see the energy and where it's going might help people understand, okay, these instincts are different universes to themselves.
right. Yeah, and yeah, so what Emeka is talking about for listeners is part of what I was looking at with the instinct was not just to get a better description, but to actually like open it up and have different touchstones or ways to engage with instinct that wasn't just is this more me or is this less me?
Right.
And so I came up with, and like, instead of just being like a sexual type is like this, I looked at what is a sexual drive, or what is self-pres drive, what is the social drive, and their drives to meet specific biological and emotional needs. And so those are the instinctual needs, and that's what, like, when you're identified with your dominant instinct, you're identified with these specific needs as being more related to your psychological survival. So
Mhm.
it's like the survival of your self concept and self image. And then in addition, I thought I, as a sexual type, would go into situations and I would apply a sexual quality of energy to like a social situation, and I would alienate people in that way.
Mhm.
And I noticed, like, you have a friend who is like a social type and is sexual blind, and they go on a date and they just stay in the friend zone,
Mhm.
and you're like, what the fuck's happening, right? And your friend's like, what if I try this, what if I say this, and the whole thing doesn't work to like sort of adjust behavior because it's like the vibe is off.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do I do as a sexual type that I can bring to them? And so I started realizing that we all have qualities of attention and energy and psychological boundaries we employ when we're trying to meet our instinctual needs. And so as a sexual type, there's a certain quality of energy and attention I use to meet my sexual needs. But as a sexual type, I get locked into that quality of energy and attention, and I try to do that with myself, present my social needs, and it doesn't work.
Mhm.
And then as a sexual type, I sometimes overdo these, I'm calling them the instinctual approaches because they're how we approach our instinctual needs. So I will overdo some of these all the time and underdo some of my self-pres ones, and I really underdo my social ones. So it's like they're qualities of attention and energy, so they're sort of hard to talk about. And so I do my best in the book, but I think that like in workshops and stuff like that, they could be really, really useful because they're about engaging the instincts from sensation and from the body
Yes.
rather than as some abstract words on a page. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, for example, if those people who've heard of us talk about the collage exercise, because that's like a sensation
Yeah.
exercise. And
Mhm.
for example, when you were talking about when you were on here with Alexandra, and you were talking about how you see her as so distinct, and um, the thing about the sexual lens is that we could collect the same group of images and like 50 images and have a different group of various different types of people looking at those 50 images. So a sexual type or someone who has sexual understacking would be fixated on the thing that hooks. Like it
Yes.
could be something unexpected. We could look at the same image, but the sexual type is going to be looking at the thing that is magnetic about it. And
Right.
so we could look at the same object and with the different lenses. So we would all pick out different things. And so maybe someone who's sexual blind is minimizing the aspects of their personality and their person that is magnetic. And so what is and like what I experienced myself as a sexual type is that I'm overemphasizing the aspects of my personality that hook me. That I think it's not like I'm consciously saying, "Oh, this is going to hook other people."
Right.
I'm only seeing the part that is magnetic, and so everyone is overdoing their instincts, even though they have those qualities in them, or maybe we're looking at the same thing. We're just fixating on different parts of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I have a bit. Oh, I put a lot of emphasis on integrating and working with the blind spot, and like I talk about in the book, that as a social blind, people would tell me like, go to parties and call your friends more, which I'm never going to do. And I had an experience that I think I've talked about in the pod before, where I was like trying to get on the train, and this girl starts talking to me, and I was like, why the fuck is she talking to me? And we end up smushed on a bus together, and I'm talking with her, and I'm noticing how my body is responding to like this social interaction. And it gave me this whole awareness of, man, like I don't open my boundaries to anybody.
Mhm.
And how I was really enjoying this conversation, and she was like cute, but I wasn't into her. It was just like there wasn't a sexual element to it. It was a really nice social thing, and I had to be almost like fucking smushed into her body to like feel her impact on me.
Mhm.
And I started realizing, like, like, 'cause I'm in the Gurdjieff work and we work with sensation a lot. And I started realizing like how tight and compact and like kind of piercing my boundaries are usually kept. And I started learning how to relax them consciously and what that would mean. And I started noticing like my social type friends who would have one of the approaches I call availability, and I'd see how they were way over available. They were like way too open. Oh, I just found a spelling error. Okay, in my book. I'm still like modifying the whole thing. Damn it.
That was
Uh,
really funny.
but yeah, so yeah, like I would see that they'd almost be locked into being too available and open sometimes, and it'd be like, why can't you close it? Why can't you contain it? Why can't you build the energy? If like I had a friend, a social type, I was giving dating, and like he was like sending me screenshots of his like Tinder or whatever. Like he's like, what do I say now? What do I do now? The girl would say, make a joke or something, and it was like his quality of response was like as if she was throwing him a ball, and he was like picking up the ball and throwing it back. And it was like a nice gentle game of volleyball. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, you got to have something piercing. You got to
Yes.
pierce underneath that. You got to get underneath that. Like she tosses you the ball, and it's like you're like, I'm friendly, and then you can pierce where it's like there's a little bit of energy, there's some tension, and is the tension going to go like like attraction or repulsion? And you got to risk that. So
Mhm.
how do you feel that in your body? You don't just tell them like, oh, do this. Like, how does the person who's sexual blind feel that in their body? How does the social blind feel social instinct in their body? How does self-preservation blind feel self-pres in their body? Because you have to work with the instinct you've already got.
So that's one of the things in the book is how do you uh, integrate or raise what would you call it, the blind spot?
Yeah, I call it integrating the blind spot, and
Yeah.
yeah, like how to do that with these approaches that I've identified. And I have like a bunch of breath work stuff in there and sensation work stuff, and then I've got I actually really like my type descriptions, just like my overall.
Oh yeah.
So I talk about the 9 types, but I don't. I like them all.
Well, that's important.
Yeah, it was I like because I just reread the book because I was like, "Where's all the errors?" And I was like, "Hey, not bad."
No, your type descriptions are fucking solid. I
Thank you.
mean, you did. 'Cause I'm aware of how much work you did, how many revisions of the sexual 8 descriptions that I've seen. So I know
Yeah,
that you put in a lot of fucking work on those.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you.
But yeah, is this the first instinct book that has anything on seriously integrating the blind spot, like an
I
actual
think so.
practice?
I
Yeah,
think
that's
so.
It's got to be. It's gotta
And
that's
be.
huge.
I honestly think it's the first instinct book that has what sexual instinct actually is in it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's the first one that really takes like uncovering what instinct is seriously, because like it's not just, oh, here are these modifications and here they are.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of unpacking what instinct actually is, and like the way it runs people and how, all this kind of shit. So I go into like I did a lot of study on like biology and anthropology and evolutionary psychology, which I know people, you know, some of that stuff is shitty, but some of that's pretty good. And like it blew my mind because I think we speak a lot on this pod about how working with the Enneagram shows you what the body, heart, and mind are instead of what we think they are. And instinct and human nature and pre-agrarian civilization, or whatever you want to call it, pre-agrarian lifestyle of human beings is far fucking different than our little cultural ideas are.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so like some of the shit, like there's a lot of shit that doesn't really make sense about human sexuality and human social instincts and how they work together. It doesn't really make sense unless you understand like that monogamy is a recent innovation and
Mhm.
how human sexual instincts worked back then,
Yeah, I think people are really going to appreciate that aspect of your book because you've done a lot of research on the biological underpinnings of all this stuff. And so, who else has done that kind of work?
Was gonna say, who else has written a book based on actual research?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Literally no one.
And I also like because I'm just plugging the book, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
I put a lot of
That
work
is what
in.
you're doing right now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Yeah.
It's happening. It's all happening.
Yeah. This
You
is
are
happening
in
now.
this experience.
I put a lot of into the spirituality aspect, like
Yes.
and like what that means in an inner work point of view, not just like I don't give a shit about like, oh, what to believe, but it's all about like the final chapter especially is like, what now that you know all this shit, like what's the practice. And, it's not long because it's not my job to like I'm not like a good representative of like deep spiritual work, but I think it's enough that I think it's a little like counterintuitive, but I think it's like actually going to be very helpful to people that want to take like that will read this book, who have some kind of spiritual foundation and then want to go to other deeper material. I feel like it's a good lead in from this kind of psychological work into spiritual work that I think it's sort of like did all the spiritual study or whatever and stuff, and then it was sort of like coming back to, oh, what was all that? You know what I mean? Like, what was I doing? What was that work supposed to be? And so I feel like this will be a good orientation for some people. Does that make sense?
Well,
Yeah.
Is it also a good orientation then for you to write the second book? You know what I mean? That goes into deeper stuff around, I don't know, spiritual practice or something with that baseline of the first book. Is it something like that?
Yeah, it's like I wrote enough for maybe like 3 books originally. It was way, way, way too long. And then now I'm in a
Shocking.
yeah. Now I'm in a kind of a spiritual crisis where I'm like, kind of getting my footing again of like what the like what is the work really? And
Mm.
I'm kind of reevaluating like what I can communicate about it that's meaningful and necessary, and what is just things I think are interesting. And so I feel like it's going to cook for a little while longer, but it's like the pieces are there. My next book I want to do is either one like getting into object relations with all y'all, or I want to do an introduction to the Enneagram book that's going to be hopefully it'll be introductory but still deep,
Mhm.
and a kind of like a go-to book for people rather than like, oh yeah, all like all the stuff that we complain about with even just the basics. Like I want that to be done, but I also want it to be funny
Yeah.
because I want to make fun of the types.
Yeah. Like a wisdom of the Enneagram replacement.
Yeah,
Of-
yeah,
of
like
funny.
yeah, exactly.
But
Like
actually worth reading and funny.
yeah, I've got a title already that I've told y'all that I don't want to tell publicly because as soon as I told somebody publicly, he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a book like that."
Oh, I know who that somebody might be.
Yeah, but yeah, so it'll be hopefully a little more provocative, and I don't know if my writing style can translate humor wise, but we'll see.
It'd be fun. I mean, that book needs to exist. Just
It really does.
a basic Enneagram book that doesn't suck. That's actually accurate, but fun to read.
Well, there's a book that I don't want to shit talk by
You can
naming
shit
it,
talk.
but I know I can. I just don't want to right now. But it's like it's like the Enneagram, but using cuss words, and it's like,
Oh God.
yeah,
Oh God.
and it's just
It's
like,
cool. It's got
Yeah.
youth pastor vibes.
yeah, and it's kind of got like definitely has that, and it's got like I think merchandise related to it that's like co-opting like phrases from Black Twitter. You know?
Oh
Oh,
God.
God.
Oh God. Oh no.
Oh
That's
gosh.
awful.
I want to find like one of these mugs or something. Anyway, it's like that stuff we just don't need it. We don't need that stuff. So.
Well, somebody made a meme about like millennial authors because a
Uh-huh.
lot of like New York Times best-selling books are by millennials. Like the book How to Not Give a Fuck, and there are all these curse words in all the titles of millennial books like that made it big. And
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious.
That's just terrible. Yeah, there's
Just to watch our generation become a joke.
totally. It's like work your ass off. You know, these kind of like titles.
Right.
It's like
We don't care. We're not corporate. And then
It's like-
Gen Z is just here
yeah.
like, no, actually burn it down.
learning how not to give a fuck. You know,
Right.
will be the title of the book, and it's like shut the fuck up.
There's one that's unfuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
these
like,
kind
all
of
right.
things.
Have you thought about putting your book on Audible?
Yeah, I have to figure out how to do that.
Okay. I might look
you know,
into that for you.
I was thinking maybe I could do for a bonus episode is just like record a little bit of me reading
Yes.
from one of the
Oh,
chapters.
yeah.
Definitely.
Gotta
Definitely.
do that.
I was gonna say that would be a cool like Patreon thing if someone wanted to pay for it or something.
Yeah,
If,
maybe have on like my website some shit that like I have a lot of stuff that I couldn't put in the book. Like I have type descriptions for all the stackings that I couldn't put in there
Oh, that would be cool.
that I want to make maybe into like a little mini book or something. You know, these kind of deals.
So do we want to look at any parts of that article just to tease people's beaks a little bit with why they should go check it out?
Yeah, did you guys read it?
Yeah, I mean, I read my part.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
we
read
could
a
just
few of them.
we could just go over each of our type combinations, and maybe because we did that for the Beatrice Chestnut counter type sucks, so we might as well like hit a couple of them and talk about why it's better than anything else we've seen. So it's not the full description, but it's at least something to talk about to get people wanting to read this fucking article.
Yeah. So do you guys want to just start with sexual 8?
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
One of the things, so I want to read like before each little section in the article, I have like kind of an overview of the types. So type 8. In type 8, the essential quality of power collapses into the passion of lust. The drive to experience the immediacy and fullness of the moment leads to chronic exertion and forcing when unable to receive impressions of essence. Thus, type 8 applies force when trying to meet the needs of the dominant instinct. So, sexual 8, again, these are longer in the book, but sexual 8 can be excessively forceful in capturing the interest of the object of their desire. They put a great deal of effort toward amplifying their impact on the object of desire from the assumption that fully capturing the beloved's attention in this way will ensure that attraction is on their terms. While self-preservation 8s have very solid boundaries and social 8s tend to hold a strong social field, sexual 8s have a more permeable boundary because of the sexual drive's responsiveness to chemistry and disposition of relenting to attraction. It gives the usual charisma of 8s a hint of self-consciousness and adds receptivity to chemistry, which is shared with only a select few. As much as sexual 8s want to hook somebody, a fear of rejection or being controlled by their own desire can motivate this instinctual type to provocatively invite rejection or disinterest, or to preemptively end relationships in order to make sure the rejection is under their control. Sexual 8s avoid feeling rejection or a lack of reciprocated attraction on the basis of traits and qualities close to their hearts. So they often make a big display of being too much to handle, an excuse with which they can easily write off their failure to gain the interest they're looking for. When in a relationship, sexual 8s have a propensity to ongoingly provoke reactions from a partner in order to feel connected in a place of authentic relating. Control, domination, possessiveness, entitlement, and testing their romantic interest, time, and emotional and physical tolerances are common in entranced sexual 8s.
Yeah, this is the best thing available out there for sexual 8. And the thing that stands out the most to me is it's unconscious drive, because you don't necessarily, it's not like everything I'm doing is, oh, this is for the object of my desire, but
Right.
it's kind of like as an 8, you're always looking to experience powerful forces in whatever it is you're doing. So I'm only paying attention to the aspects of things that can have a huge impact on me and can create these large shifts. And so inevitably, I end up creating large shifts around me. And,
Mhm.
so let's look at the Enneagram and the, how much I've been interested in the Enneagram. So the Enneagram being something that I'm hooked by, the work that I'm doing with the Enneagram is sort of like trying to find aspects of the Enneagram that can amplify a certain impact on
Mhm.
anyone who engages in what I'm doing. And so getting people riled up and really upset, or getting people really hooked into something about an aspect of the Enneagram is kind of what I'm unconsciously going for. So inevitably that has created a universe for us that attracts a certain kind of people, and we piss off a lot of people. And that is part of the plan, just invite rejection, because then that means that only a certain type of person makes it through. And that's inevitably without my planning to how I met Beth, my current partner. She was pulled in by what we did, and um, went through the most elaborate hazing process to get to me.
For real.
And didn't flinch, and we're together. So you can look at this description of sexual 8 really provoking large impact on people to hook something into a chemistry, as that's basically what I've done with my life.
Yeah. And like, part of when David, you were asking earlier about what was like my methodology of these, I really kept in mind the object relations as well. So like, how is this sexual rejection type working? And so,
Yeah.
Emeka, like knowing you, like how much, how, I mean, it's kind of like just a ongoing joke about how hard to handle you are and how big of energy and how provocative and how like, I love you, but obnoxious, and like,
Yes.
like, and how much force you've got. And it's like, on one hand, that's just part of being an 8. But on the
Right.
other hand, there's a lot there that's like, I'm going to just throw hell at you. And are you still going to be here for me?
Yes.
And how, like the deep sensitivity in there are the people I'm directing my energy toward, whether it's sexual, social, or the foundations of self-preservation. It's like, are those things going to be able to handle me? Are they going to be there? And I got to fucking test it. I got to
Mhm.
fucking provoke
Yeah.
it. And especially like, I've been there to witness your heartbreaks, and I have, another sexual 8 in my life. And how I just the way that the heartbreak is registered and the grief of heartbreak is registered, and where what level it hits at, because it's not always like an emotional feeling at first.
Mhm.
It's like there's this like very deep rejection place of like you can feel like the heart kind of close with iron. You know what I'm
Mhm.
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how much of like I don't want to be doing that, but I have to because nothing
Mhm.
can take my energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
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 And there's an aspect of like self blame in there of like, why didn't I see this coming?
Very
If there was
subtly.
heartbreak.
Oh yeah.
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 So I wanted to capture all that, and like, but also like a lot of sexual 8s are just like descriptions from what I recall are just like they're
They're
really
loud.
intense.
Yeah. No, that's not what it is. I think one of the things it's not there in this short excerpt of the full description, but if a sexual 8 is probably going to be the of the three, social and self-pres, the one that you would think looked the least 8ish, just
Mhm.
because the sexual drive is, not to say that, I mean, there's some fucking sexual very intense sexual 8s, but all things being equal, the energy, because it is about chemistry, can come across a lot softer.
Mhm.
But I mean, don't get it twisted. Whenever you start hitting on the fucking area of sensitivity, which would be like some attraction zone that the sexual 8 is identified with, you're gonna get the full 8,
Mhm.
nightmare. So it's just more on a day-to-day basis that your self-present social are more activated. So there's a narrow thing that sexual 8, for me, for example, like I'm pretty easygoing about a lot of things, but I'm very fucking serious about the Enneagram. I'm very fucking serious about sort of my creative projects, and I'm very fucking serious about my partner. or things that, so it might seem like a smaller world compared to like a social 8 who might have different more sensitivity, more areas of sensitivity, and maybe a self-pres 8 who might be focused on a certain lifestyle or business. But it's the same level of ruthlessness about that.
Right.
So a lot of times people don't know how to fuck with me because it's like, well, they're not really tapping into the area that I give a fuck about. But it's like, it's the same level of ruthlessness, but in whatever that sexual arena might be, or that attraction arena might be.
Exactly. What I try to get with the descriptions is really the sense of how we're trying to get God, and I'm using God in, whatever very loose sense, but the divine or soul or whatever you want to call it, even if you don't have any spiritual, so to speak, beliefs, like this sense of the most important thing that everything is about is like I'm trying to extract that through my dominant instinct. And so all like the core of our suffering comes from that because we really feel like we're constantly deprived of like the thing closest to our hearts. And so, and that we have no guarantee. Like one of the things about instinct is that it's the needs are constantly renewing. Like they're never fully satiated.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like you're always having to earn God back, even if you get a taste, and you having to secure, like, so if you're like, with self-pres hell that we just did, it's like you're never coasting.
Mhm.
You never get to paradise in the Garden of Eden, and you're never just like, oh, here's all the fruit I want to eat, and here's the comfortable things, and here's I don't have to work anymore. It's like it's constantly entropy is constantly happening, and same thing with sexual, same thing with social. So it's like God is always slipping out of your fingers in this horrifying way, and I wanted to get a little bit of that in each of these.
And it's also like God is it's kind of takes me to the classic split between religiosity and spirituality. And
Mhm.
so the neurotic manifestations of the instinct and the personality, it's a kind of really stiff religion, right, with a bunch of rules, right, the super
Mhm.
ego
Mhm.
and so forth, forms a really specific set of laws internally versus, ideally a more spiritual direction that would loosen up and give freedom to all that.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the religion stuff is like talking yourself that you're still going to get God even if you don't have God with you. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Right.
still going to get like at the end of this I'm going to get what I need. So I'm going to just like sort of clamp down now.
Right. Well, and that's also what I mean. It's the personality is thinking it's going to get God by following these certain rules,
Right.
and
Right.
it's a dead end.
Yeah, nothing cares.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, like from the perspective of sexual 8, it's just kind of like always it's a lie, but there's always a sense that there is so much more room to expand. I'm not doing enough. I'm not, in terms of the hook, the magnetism that we're creating with the group or whatever else we're doing. There's always a sense that there's so much more further to go in terms of how much of a shift we can fucking provoke people with and shit like that. That's what my inner message is always saying. It's like you haven't done shit. Keep going.
Right. Right. Do you want to do self-pres 9?
Sure.
All right. So 9, in type 9, the essential quality of harmony collapses into the passion of sloth. The longing to experience the coherent syncretic quality of the present leads to self-fragmentation and dissociation. Therefore, type 9s use instinctual resources to self-forget, either by distracting themselves from individuating or using instinctual resources as a means to self-narcotize, failing to develop themselves beyond the minimum needed to maintain instinctual needs. And I think that's really important how sloth is like, I'm gonna just do the minimum self-development to get my instinctual needs met. That's like the self-neglect is like, all right, I'm just sort of getting my needs met in a paltry way, like not even the best I could get met at, like just a basic level, and I kind of settle for this, and
Yep.
I don't have to develop me beyond that. um so self-preservation 9. Self-pres 9s are looking to experience essential harmony through their lifestyle and interests. Self-preservation 9s are the most independent style of 9. They will typically seek out lifestyles that provide enough independence they don't have to be answerable to or at the whims of other people's agendas. This can mean keeping them in a kind of outward focused busyness or in an immobile slump that distracts them from fully seeing their present circumstances. There's a way in which they can also settle, not quite going for what they really want to the extent that they could, and instead contenting themselves with a lifestyle and desires that don't require them to reach too far outside a limited comfort zone. They may view getting on by a little as humble or even virtuous, and they may seek to keep their world small. Self preservation nines are stubbornly entrenched in their habits and routines. They put a great deal of energy into making sure too much isn't demanded from them. Despite a reputation for being self effacing low key, when certain boundaries are infringed on or demands are placed on them, they can react with intense aggression. Young self preservation nines are prone to having difficult time knowing what path or direction they want to take through adulthood, and they will delay in choosing something definite for a great period of time. They can be late bloomers in all areas of life, taking a long time to complete their studies or acquire certain skills. Following a path laid out to them by others or sticking with an unrewarding job while making sure to look busy are strategies of putting on a performance to parents and loved ones, appearing to be proactively reaching for a goal without taking any real steps. The struggle here is not that self preservation nines don't have interests or talents, they often easily give up on themselves. Ironically, self preservation nines have some of the greatest potential for endurance of the nine types. So once they have an aim they can really get their energy behind, they typically achieve that aim and are not easily dissuaded or taken off track. The difficulty comes in really pulling their energy out of distractions into something that will enliven and challenge them.
Hmm. I don't recognize any of that. Yeah, no, I mean, it's all spot on. I don't know where to dive in and go deeper with it, but yeah, that's my story right there. I mean, it's pretty clear. Hmm.
One thing I wanted to communicate in this was that, or what I see so many self preservation nines descriptions doing is just being like, they like to eat candy and just be chill.
Right.
And
Mashed
like
potatoes.
right. And like that nines, self pres nines can be really fucking aggressive. And I
Yeah.
wanted to put that in there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that like I think the majority of like professional athletes are self pres nines.
Right.
A lot
And
of them. Yeah.
yeah, like just this like how much even if they can be very soft on the outside, how much it's like fuck off world. Like
Mhm.
Totally.
fuck off world is like really the energy underneath that.
Well, yeah, there's a thing with well, nine is so permeable and self-pres is so much a boundary.
Mhm.
And so in some sense, I've known a couple of nines, self-pres nines that describe really clearly remembering a time in childhood when they made a decision to stop or to at least have it as a function to put up a wall, to put up a
Mhm.
self-pres wall, because they were taking in so much, absorbing so much of other people's energies and things like they were going up getting into fist fights and stuff with bullies because they would take in the person who was being bullied, that energy, and want to go fight the bully or that kind of thing, and they were getting into actually a lot of conflicts and fist fights and stuff, and it was just too much, and they just decided at a certain point, I've got to set up this wall or else I'm just not even going to be able to function. I'm just going to be a mush.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's a
Yeah.
great point. How like, there's so much of the not a four issue is because teachers and authors like really trivialize the inner struggle of nine. And,
Yeah.
they that like, well, how would a nine get into a fight? Because they're conflict avoidant, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
getting into a fight coming from this deep sensitivity,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
all that aggression and sensitivity in one person is like, no wonder nines are insane.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's partly the thing too of where you're seeing someone else victimized and you're better at absorbing that other person than realizing your own internal state.
Victimization.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's that self-dispersive quality of nine where it's kind of like you're taking in a whole energy field around you, which is, of course includes the people and so forth.
Yeah, which can make nines hard to be partners with because they self-forget so much.
Yep.
You have to remind them that they exist.
And remind them of what they even wanted in the first place or something,
Yeah.
or what their
Or it's
interests
just
are.
it's also just really sad, you know? It's
Yeah.
like,
Super
oh,
sad.
you're standing up for all these other people, but you're not doing what you want.
Yeah.
And we all see it, but you don't.
Yeah, and another thing with nine, especially self-pres nine, is like I think that wall comes up, but they don't know how to ever take it down again.
Yep.
And so even though nine is this attachment type that wants contact and relationship and whatever, that's another obstacle for them to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Is
true.
they put themselves behind their own wall to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And so, their sense of trying to reconnect to somebody can be through like a thick layer of, some kind of like mashed potato type of density. You're
Yeah.
like, I know that they're behind this mashed potato wall. Like I know they're back there, but it's like, it's come up because of the sensitivity.
Yeah. And the danger of that wall coming up can be you can feel it when you're speaking with a nine as well,
Mhm,
self-pres
mhm,
nine. It's
mhm.
like it's walking on eggshells sometimes.
That's why a lot of people come to the group typing their spouses who are self-pres nines as fives because they can't
Mhm.
read. They can't having a hard time reaching them because
Yeah.
at least my experience of self-pres nines have been some of the most self-contained individuals I've ever dealt with, just in terms of at least in the romantic space, was like, wow, this hard to get to, just energetically. As a sexual type, it's kind of like you can't really pierce through and get to the other side here. Like it's gonna be impossible to get to this person.
Right.
There's a lot of existing separately that goes on with the self-pres nine.
What do you mean?
Like they exist in their own realm with you.
The attachment plus the separate, plus the containment.
And it's like
Weird.
there's always this kind of space, not always, but a lot of times there's that kind of space where you're just like not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also too like I think some nines have some sense that they are sort of playing around with energies, so to speak, and have that as an ability to sort of affect things in their environment. And you
Hmm.
get a sense that people are wanting something from you, and you're making yourself unclear and vague as a way to be a wall. So it's a weird thing of being, the wall is a cloud, but somehow the cloud is solid in a way because it's not because well, you just can't tell what's going on behind there, and
Mhm.
it's not visible.
And
Right.
is there, I might be projecting a bit here, but is there kind of a sense when that happens, like if a nine's kind of putting up their cloud wall, right? Is there kind of a sense of like, oh well, if you just dug harder, you would get there. Like you just keep trying, keep trying. No, you're almost there, kind of thing
Well,
that it goes on in a nine.
Well, I mean, that gets to another idea, a deeper thing that I think part of the line to three for nines, and maybe we've said it before at some point in another episode, but nines really do want to be really, really seen, but they
Mhm.
have actually, like, unconsciously or covertly, a really high standard for how well they want you to see them. In other
Ooh,
words,
Yes.
yeah.
and it relates to that attachment thing where you're supposed to already know, you're supposed to read me entirely and know what I want all the way through and through. I want you to see me that much, like it's full
Wow.
spotlight from every angle,
God.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates with my nine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
We're all relating here.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to read our minds. And part of the withdrawal or the aloof is to bring you all towards us so that you will kind of focus the camera lens more clearly on us, right? I mean, this is all
Because you have
unconscious.
to,
Yeah,
right?
this is making sense.
Yeah, and so, and again, it really relates to that line to 3, which is just so much about, in some sense, being recognized as the golden child. You know what I mean, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
That's really interesting.
Yep.
Do we want to do
Yeah, let's do self-pres 3.
all right. So in type 3, the essential quality of value, the precious actualized quality of the moment, the present moment collapses into the passion of vanity, self-deception, and overvaluation of the ego. Therefore, type 3 seeks to craft a persona that will have the greatest availability to obtain the most desirable instinctual ability, Self-preservation 3. Self-preservation 3s strive to experience essential value in their accomplishments, lifestyle, and careers. They tend to emphasize efficiency, tangible results, and mastery of specific skills more than sexual and social 3s. Self-pres 3s are typically very driven and be quite competitive, although contrary to some stereotypes, not every self-preservation 3 is wealthy or materially accomplished, as their values may lie elsewhere. Self-preservation 3s may opt for a humble lifestyle, yet they may be the most experienced healer in their community or a yoga teacher with the most training and credentials to show for it. As values and capacities change over the course of a lifetime, however, self-pres 3s can struggle with finding a path forward in life that results from their authentic values rather than something they're good at. They may find themselves running off an inner program that they adopted at an extremely young age and therefore find themselves struggling to feel relevant when outer circumstances and cultural views of values change. Likewise, they may avoid experimenting or trying things that they don't think they'd naturally be good at, limiting their options and overall approach to life early on. Their efficiency and achievements can lend itself to a kind of momentum towards goals that can sweep them up without their heart really being in it. They may find themselves following a path that is not aligned with their deeper values and have a hard time finding a path in life that isn't based on their forward moving energy. Self-preservation 3s are prone to workaholism, running themselves into exhaustion and achieving without awareness or concern of the larger context or impact on others. Even though self-preservation is their dominant instinct, people of this type can overdo exercise, physical performance, and work at severe cost to their overall health. These activities become another means of achievement, divorced from the original aim of enhancing the body's well-being.
That's rude.
A dagger to the heart right there.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. I think the thing that stands out to me the most is the running off an inner program, and their efficiency and achievement can lend themselves to a kind of momentum towards goals that can sweep them up without their heart really being in it. That is like a constant struggle with me, because if I'm good at something, I'm really good at it, and people will be like, "Oh my gosh, you should do that." Right? "You should
Yeah.
make money doing that. You should do that." And it's like,
Mm.
"Okay." And then I wake up 3 years later and go, "Nah, this is awful."
Yeah.
That's why there's a lot of, I'm kind of letting myself these past like 2 years kind of sit in like a, I don't know what I want, I'm kind of unhappy with everything place, because I feel like I just need to follow what I'm intrigued by. And finding what I'm intrigued by is such a process for me. Like, it takes like a long time for me to figure out whether it's actually intriguing or whether someone said something nice about me doing it, and now I have internalized that.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like, I feel like right now in my life, I've just gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do what I like. And
Right.
that's just, and it's like, that's not always leading me to like the life I want to live and like all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, okay, well, then we'll pivot to something else I like. And there's a lot of just unsureness.
Well,
Mhm.
I think one thing that like sort of in reflecting on self-pres 3 I thought was interesting, and like I have a social self-pres 3 sister, so I was drawing on some of her, but it's sort of the reflection of 9 in terms of momentum.
Hmm.
Like I can see where my sister's gotten feedback on something, and then she just thinks like, oh, I'm really good at this, and just goes for it. And there's not always the checking in on like, do I really want to put my time and energy into this thing for myself, or is it, yeah, it's just like it's kind of the inertia of sloth, but in a 3 space.
Yeah. I think allowing myself to time to check in has
Mhm.
been a really important shift.
Mhm.
I think I used to just make decisions and be like, all right, this is what we're doing now. Bye. Because I had like a sense of urgency. And now I don't really have that sense of urgency. I'm allowing myself to just kind of take my time.
Yeah, that's really good.
hmm
One of the things I wanted to emphasize in this description, so I just remember a lot of my first impressions of the type and instant combinations based on what I now recognize as like really dumb, like bourgeois middle class, like stereotypes of like, like people would describe self-press threes as like, they're the type that has like the biggest expensive house and they have a
Oh,
big
fuck
watch and they
that.
want to show it off. And it's
and they
like,
have the really nice suit. And
yeah, and it's
yeah.
like very materialistic and all stuff. And it's like maybe some of them are, but that's not what defines that type, and
Mhm.
that's like a definitely like a
Boomer.
I don't boomer,
Yeah.
white boomer thing.
Yes.
And
Everybody's got enough money to get custom made suits. That's
right. In a big house if they want it.
and yeah, and so like I recognize that like I have a body worker that I see, and I'm pretty sure she's a self-pres 3, and she's not rich, she's not whatever, but she's really good at she's just like a fucking expert on the body. Like
Mm.
she knows her shit and she knows how to work with the body, and she's very accomplished with certifications, and she's got the skills to back it up, and she's always learning more, and I see the way she promotes herself too. She's very offering education and stuff like this, and it's not like it's not like all about her or something, but she's just like she's the fucking best at what she does, and she's the best at like taking care of the body and knowing how to take care of other people's bodies, and her skills are really just top tier and professional. And I was like, oh wow, the whole fucking dumb shit stereotype of like Wall Street guy doesn't apply to this woman.
Yeah. Like, Joseph,
Oh, yeah.
friend Alisa, who was on this pod when we did the episode about threes, she's pole dance teacher instructor.
Right.
And, there are a lot of self-press threes or social last self-press threes who end up in that world because it is very skill-based and there's an element of performance and display there. But yeah, I mean, just people, at least these older descriptions kind of default to uninteresting stock characters that people can't relate to. I mean,
Yeah, they're kind of cartoony.
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're getting sexual 4. So 4.
Everybody's favorite type.
Everybody's favorite
Yeah.
type. Everybody online is a sexual 4.
Anybody who has a computer.
Anybody has a computer. All computer owners are sexual 4.
They're a sexual 4.5, 458.
Exactly.
Trifix.
It is. I remember, like, I think I've mentioned this on here before, but when I was 18 and learned the Enneagram or whatever, and I went online, I was like, I'm a sexual 4 on some forum, and it was the Riso Hudson boards, and everybody was like, no, you're fucking not, because right, everybody thinks they are. I didn't have any idea that there was like, I was like, why the fuck would anybody think they're this, and
Yeah.
and now when you see people posting online like I'm a sexual 4, and you like click on their profile, they're like standing in front of their beige white family like, on a beach, like as the background photo of their profile,
Smiling heavily.
All their shirts match.
Right.
Khaki pants.
Right. All right.
If you dig deep enough, I have one of those on my Facebook page.
I'm gonna find it.
Somebody put like, I think you were arguing with somebody who had the American flag in their profile picture and said they were a sexual 4, and it was like, whoa.
Right.
He's like, I can be patriotic and be a sexual 4.
No,
you can't.
cannot. It's literally
can't.
impossible.
I think she said she was like working for the military or something.
Oh,
and
absolutely not.
I was like, you're just digging your grave with every comment.
So, all right. So, sexual 4. In 4, the essential quality of depth, the mysterious bottomless quality of presence, collapses into envy, chronic disappointment, and a reaction to the inadequacy of the personality. Inadequate as a source of identity, to be clear. 4s seek instinctual resources which they hope can meet their longing for depth, while reacting to the inability of these resources to provide the depth they seek. So I got the frustration there. Sexual 4. Sexual 4s long to experience essential depth in relationships, creativity, and intense experiences. They're prone to demonstrating their creativity and depth as a means to entice and sexually attract, and they can fetishize emotional, intellectual, or spiritual depth, imbuing it with an erotic mystique and deep contempt for the mundane. Both 4 and the sexual drive emphasize characteristics that distinguish oneself from others. Compounded sexual 4s cultivate identities that are hyperspecific and elaborate. This hyperspecificity aims to be attractive to a few and repel those deemed too banal to appreciate their unique flavor. They want to be uninhibited in pursuing their attractions. They are typically resistant to structure, confining jobs, and adhering to routines. There's often a struggle to sustain themselves practically. Envy leads to chronic doubts about their attractiveness and their ability to keep those they wish to attract interest in them. Hypersensitivity to their partner's perceived level of attraction generates great distress if there are any lulls or mellow periods. So sexual force tend to be sexually competitive. They feel they cannot be magnetic enough, and therefore they're always trying to shore up their displays of talents while never feeling adequate in attraction and never feeling adequate. They may feel the need to be the greatest love of a partner of the partner they're with, or at least the most impactful and unique one. Envy also creates excessive focus on perceived personal defects, which a 4 will inevitably find, that disqualifies them from having and keeping the person they want. This can lead sexual 4s to testing their partners and desired objects in various ways, possessiveness, suspicion, and causing fights to feel entangled. They're prone to acting out stormy swings between idealization and disillusionment, extremes of love and hatred. Sexual 4s can play out a pattern of frustration with their loved ones, waiting for their loved ones to be everything for them, and rejecting them when their partner is unable to meet their unrealistically high expectations. Disintegrating sexual 4s are prone to self-harm, emotional abusiveness, and physical violence toward themselves and their partners, acting out intense hatred and possessiveness toward their partners and adopting a reckless, burn-it-all-down attitude.
Damn.
So, yeah.
Talking shit about yourself in this one, huh?
Alexandra looking at me and just rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Does that sound accurate? She said, that's so dramatic.
Yeah, the frustration bit, they're playing out a pattern of frustration with their loved ones is that's really important. And the disdain, deep contempt for the mundane. I like that phrase. That's great. People are going to be really upset. Like a lot of sexual, not a 4s are going to read this and be like, this is pathological.
You'd think, but Alexander and I were looking at, posted some of these in some of the Facebook groups, and Alexander said something like, look, there's still attachment types attaching to the description.
Yep.
Being like, that's definitely me, checks on all the boxes. That's like these kind of very is it you?
Right. I don't see how an attachment type could actually read this description.
Oh, they could.
And say that they have deep contempt for the mundane.
Yeah.
They're adapting. They adapt to anything.
Yeah.
Adapting to a description.
See, the way I believe they would go about that is they would say, well, I find beauty in everything, so nothing's mundane.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's the Delta variant of adaptation.
Exactly.
Attachment. Attachment, the Delta variant.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
I've been loving those my plants are fall Delta variant memes. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, my plans for fall. Oh, okay. I just now got what you said.
My plants are fall. I was thinking of ways to adapt that and being like, my plants are the Enneagram and then big hormone on the right.
My plans for deep contempt. JK, I'm a 9.
So yeah, that's any of these 4 descriptions, any of them sound off or anything like that?
No, they sound great.
Not at all. Literally not at all.
No, my friend that I'm always mentioning is sexual 4, and the competition thing was a big deal with being around him for 30 years.
Yeah.
I was just, just being a 9, just like, dude, why are you competing just constantly with women that are, with me for women that are either my chick or you thinking that I'm putting the moves on your girl, or the woman that we just drove up to the drive-through and she offered us something, and did she say it to me or was she saying it to him?
Right.
You know what I mean? Just constantly, constantly. It just drove me insane. Just competition after competition. And yeah, just, oh man. it was just this whole big thing that was just in the way all the time of just, can't we just chill out?
No chill. Yeah.
No chill.
Yeah. So there, a lot of that is obviously insecurity, but it's an insecurity about like, if me and this person are going to reach the depth that I need, it's like, it's not like, oh, I'm looking for a partner in a casual way that's like, we're going to have a good time together. And like, it's like really sweet when you find somebody that you care about. It's like we need to be at the depth of our souls together. Like this.
There is no having a good time.
No, we need to be able to drink each other's blood and get like, and be drunk off of it. You know what I mean?
Lots of fun.
Yeah. Sounds like a wet blanket.
Yeah, so this is obviously the type that takes photos of their beige family in khaki pants on the beach. Yes.
It's interesting to think about, looking at these descriptions, and I'm sure people will do this and look at their trifix, and you look at your chord type, and then look at the 2 secondary fixes to see in what. Because for me as a sexual 8, I'm saying that essential power through through hooking or attraction or magnetism is sort of like creating these inner shifts. Like I don't just want to piss people off, even though that's fun, but I want to piss people off with like their own inner nightmares. That's what I get off of.
You're going to be an ontological terrorist.
Yes. That's what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. Like if you, like my hope is that people reading these descriptions, they can see like, 4, 5, 8. Can I resonate with sexual 8? Can I resonate with sexual 5? And also within one's own type, like I resonate with the social and self-pres 4s descriptions. Like,
yes.
So like I'm social blind. I don't really get into the social instinct as a pervading thing, but I can still see that when I'm in my social instinct, that's operating. And I can definitely see myself pres because it's my second instinct. I can see that like I need my lifestyle to be a reflection of my depth and this kind of a thing. So like anybody that's listening should hopefully be able to find, especially if they're unclear about their type or something, that they can go, okay, like I think I'm a 5. Can I see self-pres 5, sexual 5, and social 5? And can I see how much those things happen with me? And can I see my fixes involved with whatever's going on there?
Yeah, and especially with really accurate descriptions, which these are super sharp, I think people can do that. Whereas, with really vague and inaccurate descriptions, people get really lost. But when you have something really sharp, like we were talking about the object relations, and it's not getting too specific on like what people do, but sort of the whole structure, I think people can actually use these descriptions to type themselves, even though they're not going to accurately do that because that's fucking hard, but you can get a lot closer than otherwise.
Right. And it's just seeing how much of the thing we think to be us is carved out by the ego, and how much it's just operating. And and eventually, like we've talked about getting specific with trifix combinations of essence qualities.
Yeah.
And like some of this, like if this is how we distort essence, it's like kind of like I always think about walking backwards into like essence, because it's like you can't like you can't grip essence. It's ephemeral, right? It's not a tangible thing, but it's sort of like you learn how to see more and more and more of the bars of your personality. And so you start to like step backwards. You can't see what you're stepping into, but you can know you're stepping away from the matrix. And I think hopefully it'll give people a sense of essence in contrast to all the stuff that's not essence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, people should go check out this article. It's going to be in the episode description, all over the web, hopefully. And
look for the book.
Yeah. Read that book.
We'll keep doing book shit maybe as we build for this. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
I think that's a great idea.
I also want to shout out there. I still do Enneagram coaching with people, and a lot of I've had a couple long-term clients that are doing more like once every 2 weeks now, because it's sort of they're in a good place. So I got a lot of spots open. So for listeners that want to do some inner work or want to use their Enneagram type more deeply, hit me up.
All right.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.